All right, Jon Voight in the studio, a legend who doesn't seem to be slowing down. Reagan is the new film, and it's got a lot of people in it you're going to recognize, and we'll tell you about that in a second. But also, John, Midnight Cowboy and Deliverance. I forgot about you in Deliverance. Also, The Champ. Tearjerker there. One of my favorites, and I tell Eric Roberts every time he comes on, Runaway Train. I have that in my list of movies where I go, you haven't seen Runaway Train? And they go, no, if I know that one. I go, you're going to love this movie. It's such a good movie. Look, Deliverance is a good movie, and Midnight Cowboy is a good movie, but pretty much everyone I know has seen those. Runaway Train is different. I don't know everyone has seen that movie, and it's just great.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's a great movie.
And it's also kind of fun to see John play a real heavy in it, too.
Yeah.
Like real scary guy who lets his fist do his talking.
Yeah, it changed my career, that movie. There's a big story about that movie, how I decided to do it and all. But,
well, tell it. You can share it with us.
Oh, it's a scary thing. I can't do it.
It changed your career, though.
Well, it changed my career because it had the effect that you just mentioned, which is people saw me as a certain kind of actor and in certain kinds of roles, and didn't see me as a heavy.
Right.
So didn't think I had that kind of gear. And when I did it, it opened the door to several pieces later, like my role in Heat.
Right.
And Ray Donovan eventually.
Sure.
And different things. So it gave me another couple of years, I think, actually.
And so now, I don't know. Something sound a little. Is that? Some sounds a little tinier off or something. But anyway, Dawson's had to run home, so we don't. But that sounds good.
Was it me? Or
No. It's just when you wear the headphones and you do this times 1,000 times a year, you start to realize something little minute little sound
you're
a little bit
very sensitive.
I'm very sensitive. Yes, I have hypervigilance, I think it's called. Stuff bugs me.
Well, I'm a perfectionist mentality. That's what bothers people about me.
Oh, do you have the perfectionist mentality?
I guess I do. Yeah.
How does it manifest itself?
Well, the way I see things in my work, I want to get it just right. Mm-hmm. And I want to go that extra. If I see something that's not authentic, it bothers me and stuff,
Yeah, and then so you get kind of accused sometimes of being a pain in the butt or something?
People are much more kind to me, actually. They say, John, would you take it easier? Like that.
Well, if you make a film, you will be driven insane by tons of little inconsistencies that you try to point out while you're making the film, and then people will tell you nobody cares, nobody's watching, no one's going to know about this.
I think in some sense that's true, but when you're in gear and things are going, everybody knows it. It's just it's little things that you're adjusting to and all that. My work with Dustin Hoffman was, that was a great film, Midnight Cowboy, and Dusty is a tremendous actor, and he has the same thing I do. Mm-hmm. So we felt very familial, and we were very comfortable.
Well, it's reminding me of a story, which is, I think, and Joe's going to have to look this up. I still don't know why these mics sound a little bit different than normal, but I think that's a Dawson thing.
Maybe it's better. Maybe it's sounding better.
You know what? I like your spin on this. It's got a little hollow. Dawson had to leave, so Dawson did something a little different, and it's a little, can't quite figure it out. But anyway, I'll move on with this story without being bothered. This is my hypervigilance that's bothering me.
Is it a chunk of gum that's on the...
Oh, my God. There we go. So I filmed a boxing movie. So we both have done a boxing movie.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And my movie's called The Hammer, and nobody saw it, which is fine. But it was highly, 82% with the critics and 90 with the people on Rotten Tomatoes. So
There we go. There we go.
It's a good score.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, so I think I filmed that movie in the boxing gym. I think it was the Ray Donovan boxing gym.
Wow.
Which would have been out here in South Central or whatever, downtown, something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Somewhere out here, right?
Yep.
And somewhere in East
We reconstructed that gym in the Sony lot.
Oh, you
so we
did?
actually redid the whole thing.
So you didn't film at the gym. You
No.
filmed at the representation of the gym.
Yeah, I can't remember whether when we did the trailer, when we did the first episode, which was to see if we're going to have a movie, the trial run. I think
Right.
we shot it there downtown, and then when we were given the green light, we rebuilt the thing in the lot.
Well, we'll see if we can find a picture of my movie and a picture of Ray Donovan. But I think we filmed at the same gym, or somebody said something to me to that regard. But so you're a detail person.
Yeah, this is a funny thing to get off. I've never opened like that, with this kind of revelation about my.
Well, the reason I bring it up, that we talk about it is because it bleeds into other facets of life. And the detail ends up making me frustrated because I'm like, what are we doing? When I see you drive along the freeway, it's it's raining outside, and I see the sprinklers on the side of the freeway spraying all over while it's raining outside. And then I see the sign say conserve water, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I can go to Home Depot and I could get a rain sensor for $18. Why is the city doing this? Why are they running there? And no one else knows and no one else cares. But to me, it's bothersome.
I'm
That's
impressed.
what I'm saying. But do you
You're
have
my
that
hero.
wiring as well?
Not on those things, I probably wouldn't. In my work, I'm a little bit, like that. But I'm trying. But there's another aspect too. When it's right, you just try to get to the point where you're out of control, in a sense, as an actor. You're not trying to guide anything.
Right.
You're trying to let it go.
Right.
And every take's a little different too, because you're listening and things are happening. So in some way, I'm being a little tough on myself. But if I get to a thing with an editing thing and I see something wrong, I really want that fixed, and it stays in my mind, until it does get fixed.
Has it been 60 years? I think we fixed my mic a little bit there. What was the setting?
That
That's
gum.
what drives
See
me
the
nuts.
gum. It was the gum.
Every single time there's a mic problem, the answer is always, I didn't touch a thing. Then you go, really? I didn't touch a thing. It's different. I didn't touch a thing. And they go, oh, the fade's up too high. Yeah, someone put the fade up too high. And I go, okay, that's something. All right, you've been going, now it went back again. That's interesting.
You see, the people at home are really going to be in trouble.
They hate me. 60, how long have you been acting? Is it 60 years,
gosh.
uninterrupted?
I've been acting since 1960, 61, something like that.
So 63 years of 62 years of pretty much that's all you did. No, I mean uninterrupted.
Well,
right?
yeah.
What's the longest hiatus you had?
I don't know. I had some lean years. I couldn't find work easily, but I filled it in with stuff. But anyway, I've been very fortunate. Very fortunate, and I've had to go to school and learn things and face inadequacies of different kinds and work through it. But I made a decision when I was in college. I went to college in Catholic University at Washington, D.C., which says an awful lot.
Is that where you grew up in that area?
I grew up in Yonkers, New York, and then I went to this university. And I enjoyed being there. And I kept asking mostly girls, because girls were interested in talking to hearing a guy talk about things. I wanted to find out what I should do when I got out. So I would say, should I be a teacher? I was an artist a little bit. Should I be an illustrator? Should I be this? Should I be that? Whatever it was. And they would listen, and I did that almost from the time I entered the university, because I was worried. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. but I had some success as a kid in doing a little play for my 6th grade, and then in high school I was in the musicals, and I got a lot of attention for that, But I didn't take it too seriously, and in my junior year at the university, I was going into my senior year in the summer of that break. I was walking across this campus, and I had in my hands a book. And I looked at the book, and I said, why am I carrying this book around? And it was a book of criticism from a British critic of the British theater. Mm-hmm. And I had made notes on every Laurence Olivier performance. And I looked at it, and I knew what he was doing. He was making choices as an actor to illuminate the play. It was so that the ending would come with a certain power. Mm-hmm. And none of the other actors were doing that, I just could see what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it, and in that moment I said, I know what I want to do. I want to be him. I said those words, actually said, I want to be him, be Laurence Olivier, which was crazy, but that's what I said. And so in that moment I knew that I was going to do my last year in school and go and begin my studies in New York and become an out-of-work actor in New York, trying to get a little job to keep going and follow a career. And I knew in that moment something was evident to me, that I would hit spots where I was trouble, and I'd go up and down, but I wouldn't give up. Somehow I actually said that to myself at that moment. I knew I wouldn't give up. And after that, I had no doubt I never asked that question again. I finished that school year, and I went to New York, and I started looking for work and learning from a teacher and stuff like that.
Now, do you believe there's something divine about that, or do you believe it's all sort of internal? Is it kismet? Mm-hmm. Is it meant to be? Is it preordained? Is it luck? Like, what are we calling it?
There's some people, very high people, I think, people I admire, say it's all written. Mm-hmm. Everything is laid out, And we have this mysterious thing of making choices, but it's all written. Mm-hmm. I think in some ways it was like that. I think I was meant to do what I was doing, and I'm very grateful for it. I really love what I do, and I love stories, and I can trace that delight and the joy of telling stories to my father, who told us stories when we were kids, my 2 brothers and I.
How was your father? Usually I didn't go to college, so nobody paid for college. I didn't go to college. So the expectation level wasn't very high for me after high school.
When did you realize you were so smart? Because I think you're really smart.
Maybe later tonight. What time is it?
You're a smart guy.
Well, for me, where I come from, being smart had to translate into a grade or a test score or a scholastic type of smart. So what happened with me is I didn't learn to read or write as a young person. Wow. And so I did not excel in school because I didn't read and I didn't write. So
was this a dyslexia, or was it just you never were introduced to that?
So my upbringing is unique. I grew up out here, and it's not that unique, but I grew up in the North Hollywood with a sort of a poor family, welfare and food stamps, and just sort of a downtrodden family. But my mom was a hippie, and my mom, that's how I learned to hate hippies. But my mom had this idea that her kids should go to some sort of free-range school, some sort of hippie. It's like a 70s hippie, right. Billy Jack. That was the model, and they shouldn't have to sit there and learn arithmetic and conjugating verbs and things like that. They should just be experimenting and dancing and doing art. And there's shades of it now in our society. You see it now where like these, we got to connect with these kids and there shouldn't be test scores. We shouldn't be judging them on the curriculum and so on and so on. So I ended up in that environment.
Right.
Well, that environment didn't teach you how to read. And it didn't teach you what a verb was or a noun was. You just hung out and listened to a guy play an acoustic guitar and try to memorize a Joan Baez song, and then you go make something out of clay. And that was about it. And so it was good in that you interacted a lot. You call the teachers by their first names. The parents were all kind of hanging out, probably high, and there was nothing scholastically. So then at some point that ended, and now I had to attend public school. And by the time I got to public school...
So how old were you?
I showed up at the 5th grade in public school, but I couldn't read or write the same way you couldn't read or write if you're a feral child, like if you were just raised in a cabin in the woods and you never saw a book. You don't instinctively know how to read or write. It's not dyslexia. I never learned. So then I got thrown into a situation where I didn't know how to read or write. I was a horrible student and I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. I didn't want people to know. I got called up to the chalkboard to write girls and boys for the PE thing. And I spelled girls Gurls when I was...
It's not the way you spell it?
When I was, 12 or something. So I didn't know anything, so I just hid. And then later on, I got out of high school and I just dug ditches, And so I didn't know anything about being smart, And by the way, you were called dumb because my high school, I graduated 498 out of like 550 or something. I was real down the totem pole. And so I just figured I was dumb. So I just dug ditches. So I never had anyone go smart, because smart was attached to school and I was never good at school.
Well, it's interesting that I said that you responded in this way. I'm so glad to hear all of that. But you are really smart. So, it just shows you that there are different kinds of ways to express that. And one that listens to that and admires you for going through all of that, because it must have been very difficult as your own self-image and your feelings about things.
Well,
it's difficult.
For me, I was just like, look, you're not smart, so you better learn how to swing a hammer and do something that doesn't really require, high intellect. Certainly nothing that would involve writing or reading or anything of that nature. So I'll go to the place that's furthest away from that, and that's a construction site. You don't have to read anything. You don't have to recite anything. You don't have to spell anything. You don't have to do
that stuff. But you have to be smart.
You have to learn how to build, and really what you have to learn is what not to do next time when you make a mistake. And also it's really just about mentorship, and not even good mentorship. It's like, hey, dipshit, you're doing it wrong. And then you look down. And you do, the first time you cut a piece of plywood, some guy who's been doing it for a while will go, listen, it's all frayed out. Take the T-square, put it on there, take your utility knife, score it, and then cut it so it doesn't fray, and you go, oh, okay, I'll do it that way. And then they go, oh, and by the way, the bottom comes out cleaner than the top because of the way the blade is turning on your hypoid saw. And you go, all right, so the cleaner edge is on the bottom, so I should cut this upside down. And you just get tons and tons of that. And it's just guys telling you all day, every day, you're doing it wrong. Here's how you do it now. And you just try to remember every single technique and tip they give you. And then at some point, 8 years goes by and you're now a carpenter. Right. You don't do it in the first 3 years. It's too much, to retain. There's 8 penny sinkers, 16 penny sinkers, 10 penny sinkers, ring shank nails, common head nails, duplex nails. It goes on, and cup head finish nails. You know what I mean? It just keeps going and going and going. You can't memorize all that stuff unless you've been there for 10 years. So for me, I just went, look, you're not a good student. Maybe you're smart or you're not smart. It doesn't, neither here nor there, but just go build houses for a living.
Yeah. And when did you discover that you had a wit?
I always knew I liked it. You know, it was like a fun thing for me. Like if you like to dance and some music came on at a party and you might dance, and then you were sort of like, oh, that guy's a better dancer than some of the other guys. But it did not mean you're going to be a dancer. Right. It was just something you did, you know, something you liked. And so for me, it was like, oh, this is a natural setting for me just to screw around. Somebody, like you do the same thing. Somebody says something, you say something back. Yeah, you play with it a little bit. Yeah. But there still was no path to money.
Did you have a father figure in your life?
My dad wasn't really a father figure. He was just a father. He was just sort of there. You know, but there wasn't a lot of tutelage going on. I guess for me, it's like every older construction guy I walked onto a job site with sort of became that sort of teacher, mentor, but it was also kind of drill sergeant too. You know, they didn't coddle you. They're like, hey, dipshit.
And that's pretty cool, actually.
I was fine with it.
It's a form of respect in a way.
I was like, if these guys are taking the time to show me how to do something, then they must be invested or have some thoughts about me. They're even if it's coming across in a kind of coarse way and they're gruff, but the guy's still taking the time to show me how to do the router.
You bet.
You know, and I liked it. And that's all it is. There is no books. There's no manual. It's everybody just telling the next guy that comes around, here's how. It's all, you know, it's like 2,000 years old. It's word. It's all verbal.
Right.
Nobody reads. Nobody has a schematic. I mean, they have a plan for the house, but everyone's just passing along these techniques, you know, and they sit there and they go, oh, you do 45s on your baseboard. I do cove joints, you know, and you go, how's a coping joint, you know, and they go, we got to cut a 45 on your chop saw and get a coping saw out. And you're like, oh, how's that work? Like, and they start... You see, oh, there's a new way to do this, and they like it. Yeah. But I mean, it's probably not so different than acting, and that you can't really read a book on it.
Look, it's very impressive what you're saying to me. But I remember when I was growing up, there was a carpet factory down at the bottom of this hill in Yonkers. And by the way, I lived toward the top of this hill where Public School 5 was. That I went to school, and my father went to school there, and I had a good time growing up in this neighborhood. A lot of kids, and it was so different than today because we could stay out late and come in. You know, when my mother shouted, "Come on in, get in!" You know, and people were running. The kids were running in and out of each other's homes and stuff like that very freely, and it was a good time growing up. But when we used to watch television when I was in my teens. My father, this is the early television, see, this is in the 50s. And so we had 3 channels, that's it, you know. And one of the channels, every Saturday night, Sid Caesar would have an hour-and-a-half show. With Sid Caesar,
show of shows.
Your show of shows.
Right.
And Sid Caesar, I became infatuated with Sid Caesar because my father thought he was a genius. And so then I was saying, okay, he's a genius. And he used to do all sorts of accents. And he would imitate movies. They would do there were Japanese movies at that time. They came with like Rashomon or something. They would do their version of Rashomon with Sid and Carl Reiner and Imogen Coca. And the myth was that my father told me that Sid hung around the carpet factory at the bottom of our hill, and all these immigrants were working there. And he got his characters and accents and his love for different accents from there. And Sid would be able to do any kind of an accent. He would imitate. He would do this gibberish, but it sounded like Italian, or it sounded like German, or it sounded like Irish, or what? Irish is English, of course. But he he had this thing, and I used to imitate him. And he had a character that was the professor who knew nothing and was the expert on everything.
Right.
And he would say, this is the reason I'm on this show. It's because you understand, you have a sensitivity, and you can see in my eyes and in my expression of my body that I'm a genius. And that's why you have me on the show to ask you how I become a genius. And how I become a genius is simple. You just wait. That's it. You wait until you know something, and then you say it, and that makes you a genius. You see what I mean? Like that. Whatever. I just did my little improvisation of Sid Caesar, but anyway, that whole idea of that milieu, people. That's where that's where I really love. That's what I really loved. I loved that idea. Of learning from people who were speaking different accents and came from different places.
How much of it was because your dad really liked it and maybe
I think a lot,
looked up to him?
Because I did look up to my dad, but he also was a great storyteller. He had a wonderful voice, and he had 3 boys, 1 year apart.
What's the heritage?
Was the middle.
What's your heritage?
My mother was German. Her parents were German. My father was Czech. And so far as I know, if you go to these places now, you get some kind of an idea of what your makeup is. It's
your father was Czech.
Maybe a bunch of other things.
I'm trying to think because I had something stuck with me.
Not that they knew anything about their. I wasn't raised to have any lineage in any way. I was an American.
Yeah, I agree. I have a step grandfather who's Hungarian, named Laszlo Gorag, and he just told stories and told stories and told stories. And he was a writer, and he was my step grandfather. I didn't know either one of my biological grandfathers, but at some point somebody told me the Hungarians are storytellers. And it stuck with me, and I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense because no one in my family spoke, and then my grandfather would just. I'd sleep over every night. The stories he would just tell, he would just wax poetic. So I wonder if the Czech thing is in there somewhere with the Hungarian world.
I really don't know how my dad, but I have an idea about it.
What did he do for a living?
He was a golf professional.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could be a golf professional back then.
Oh, yeah. He was a golf professional. And he was a very talented, up-and-coming golfer. And then at 18 years old, he was coming back from a tournament with a packed car. He wasn't driving. And the car hit them head on. And he sustained a back injury that prevented him from playing the top-notch, professional golf. He had to leave the tour. And yet the people at the club that he represented, a German Jewish club, loved him. And said, no, you're going to be our professional. You'll be our teaching pro.
Oh, so he was
Gave
a club
him a job.
pro.
So he's a club pro.
Oh, wow.
And he was with us. Instead of being on the tour, he was with his family. And that was great. That was a real blessing for us. And we were 1 year apart. As I said, I was the middle. And my dad would come back from teaching all day. And after dinner, we lived in this little apartment. We all had one room. Little room, actually. And there was a doorway to the kitchen. And my mother was cleaning up after dinner. And I heard those sounds. And then my dad would lie down. We had a bunk bed, so we'd share. I was the bottom. My brother, Barry, who was the eldest, had his own bed. And my brother, Chip, was upstairs of me, in that little bunk bed. And when it was his turn to get the story told next to him, he would come down to my bed and I'd jump upstairs, and my father would lie down with one of us every night. And then
every night and tell you the story.
Really, pretty much every night. He would, coming back from the tea. So he would say, well, where were we? Let me see, whatever. Right. And he started, and he'd give us a menu. You could have a story from his own life, and he became a character in his own story, little Elmo. Elmer was his name. And those were my favorite stories. And he'd tell of his adventures when he was a young kid, And then he had espionage stories because it was Second World War, and he would tell us stories, espionage, make them up, and then make up knight in shining armor stories, which were not our favorites because they always had to do with romance of some sort,
Right.
you know. So, so we wanted that espionage, but we really liked the ones he told about his own upbringing. But he had a wonderful way of telling, and he did them, extempore. He did them off the top of his head.
Right.
And he just had a great. And I knew at that time I was listening, and I'm saying, and I'd see the beginning, the way he set it up, and the middle, and then I trying to figure out how he's going to end it. So I became involved in the process of it, you know. So I'm still the same, the beginning, middle, and end. That's what I do.
Was he able to see your success as an actor?
He did, yeah, before he passed. And he was hit by another automobile, killed him.
Really?
Yeah, he had a crash. My mother was driving, and 3 girls who just came from a garage, apparently for their brakes, went through a stop sign and hit him in the side of his car that he was at. And
what year was that?
it was, oh boy, well, it was when he was 63. It was quite far back. It was in the 80s, in the 70s.
But he
70s.
got to see.
It's funny, I
your
don't remember
success?
the date. It's funny.
I
remember
get that.
I was making a movie called Conrack at that time. So it was.
He got to see Midnight
in the
Cowboy.
70s. He got to see Midnight Cowboy, and he got to see Deliverance too.
Oh, okay.
You know, so he knew I was on the way. I wasn't a one hit guy. You know,
Was your mom okay from the accident?
she had a crushed heel
Wow.
and maybe some broken rib or something like that. And my mother was tough and great, just a great woman. She got out of the car. She crawled out of the car and got my father out of his side and pumped his chest while waiting for the police to come. And stuff.
Wow. And he
And
died
got
there.
him back.
Oh.
But he was really brain dead. He was done, you know. But she got him breathing again, and she was trying to bring him back.
So the big one at 18, then the big one at 63.
Yeah.
Cars used to be really dangerous back.
Cars are dangerous.
in the day. I mean, now they have airbags and crumple zones, and they're a little safer
Yeah, a little safer.
than they were. But back then, man,
Yeah.
and the technology and the drum brakes and the bias-ply
Well,
tires.
see, you
and
know
all
all that stuff, see?
Oh, I do race cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're quite a bit safer
Yeah.
than they used to be. So, tragic, but at least he got to see you were on your way.
Yeah, he's a beloved man, my dad. He was a revered fellow. He was great with children. He was wonderful, wonderful guy.
Tommy John, here's a simple life hack. It's an upgrade. Upgrade to Tommy John. With Tommy John, you're much more comfortable, so you'll do everything better. Second Skin underwear has dozens of comfort innovations, like a supportive contour pouch and horizontal quick draw fly, plus breathable, lightweight, moisture-wicking fabric with 4 times more stretch than competing brands. I'm wearing mine right now. They're great for exercise, especially if you work a little sweat up, because they dry on you fast. So if you go for a workout, you get a little thing going, then you jump in the car, they're dry before you get home. Over 20 million pairs sold, thousands of 5-star reviews. Tommy John doesn't have customers. They have fanatics. That's why I'm wearing mine right now. What color? Oh, yeah, sort of battleship gray. Best pair you'll ever wear, or it's free. Guaranteed. It's Tommy John, right, Dawson?
Get 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/Adam. Save 20% on Second Skin at TommyJohn.com/Adam. TommyJohn.com/Adam. See site for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. They're in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly offers friendly, helpful service and the parts and knowledge you'll need for all your maintenance and repairs. That's right. It's not just about maintenance. You got to repair it every once in a while yourself. I've been going to O'Reilly since, knee-high to a bull weevil? I don't know what they say, grasshopper. I've always gone to O'Reilly. I used to live up in the hills in La Crescenta. I'd go to the one up on Foothill. Still there. past it the other day. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in store or online, so you'll never have to worry if you're in a jam. The team at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery for free in or out of your car, which is nice. You don't have to pull it. If it needs to be replaced, they'll help you find the right battery for your vehicle. Need your windshield wipers replaced, brake light fixed, quick service, they'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help as well. Whether you're a car aficionado or an auto novice, you'll find the team at O'Reilly knowledgeable, helpful, and best of all, friendly. So the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto, do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in the store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. Rosetta Stone. Learning a new language can be good for travel, but can also be good for business. Yeah, it's nice when you can speak the language of your client, let's say. Rosetta Stone, the most trusted language learning program available on desktop or as an app. It truly immerses you in the language that you're learning. 30 years, millions of users, 25 languages, Spanish, French, Italian, German, Korean, Chinese, Arabic. It's all there. Designed for long-term retention. No English translations. Learn to speak, listen, and think in that language. Plus, built-in true accent feature gives you feedback on your pronunciations. Dr. Drew loves these guys. Used it with his wife before he went to France. He speaks French fluently, but it cleaned hers up overnight. Lifetime membership has all 25 languages for 50% off. What? That's got to be a typo. 50% off all 25 languages, lifetime membership. It is Rosetta Stone, right, Dawson?
Don't put off learning that language. There's no better time than right now to get started. For a very limited time, Adam Carolla Show listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. Visit rosettastone.com/Adam. That's 50% off unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your 50% off at rosettastone.com/Adam today.
Stamps.com. Yes, I'm an efficiency nut, always looking for time savers, and that's where Stamps.com comes in. You know, I'm such a nut with efficiency that before the 30-second button was on all microwaves, back when they just had the seconds thing on there, I would put things in for 33 seconds instead of 30 seconds because I didn't want to lift my finger and go to the 0 from the 3. Yeah, that's how into it I am. And that's how into it Stamps.com is. You can cut hours. You can hours spent on mailing and shipping. That's right. Save that time. Be efficient. Go to Stamps.com. Take care of mailing and shipping wherever you are with Stamps.com. All you need is a computer and a printer. Schedule pickups right through the dashboard. Cost of postage increases in July. I should say increased in July. It's already up. And Stamps.com has the rates you can't find anywhere else, like 89% off U.S. Postal Service and UPS. Free up more time for important business. Just go to Stamps.com, enter the promo code Adam for a 4-week trial, plus free postage and a free digital scale, which I use here every week to weigh the merch bag, so it doesn't get over 50 pounds. No commitments or contracts. That is Stamps.com. Stamps.com. Use the code Adam. That's a blessing to have a wonderful dad. You know, the kind of dad that you respect and that you speak highly of.
Yep, I was very fortunate. Very fortunate.
No, it really is. I mean, it's a little luck of the draw. Obviously, you don't, it's not your choice, good or bad. But a good dad is like the best, we always talk about, when they talk about like white privilege, like the best privilege you can have is two parents. Two parents that care.
You bet.
And that is the ultimate. That is much better than any color of any skin or any religion or any heritage, is having two good parents, and especially a good dad that hangs out and does the job.
Yeah, and so we look at our history, and when we deal with it politically, even today, we've been attacked in that area. I carried this book with me. I walked in with it. So I'll just say it. It's Dr. Ben Carson's book called The Perilous Fight. Mm-hmm. And it says the subtitle is Overcoming Our Culture War Against the American Family. And it's exactly that, what you're talking about. And by the way, it has some relevance to this movie I did, Reagan.
Right.
I played a KGB agent who was assigned to follow Reagan. And in doing my research on it, I came across this fellow who was a dissident and wound up in America, was a KGB agent, and his name was Yuri Bezmenov.
Oh, yes.
And he talks about the attack on the American family as one of the techniques, not only taking over the schools, not only taking God out of the schools, but taking over the media, taking over Hollywood.
Well,
all of that stuff that was planned by the KGB in the early part of the 50s, maybe.
I mean, you can watch that tape of him speaking from the 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm just looking at my guys, but by the 86, 87 year Bezmenov is basically laying out 84, laying out the recipe for what it's going to take. So to overturn this is we are. So here's what we do, which is an interesting thing. Most countries, all countries, do not really have the ability to take us over with an army. I mean, they can't invade the United States and occupy the United States. But there's a cheaper, easier way that doesn't involve any troops or any jets or whatever. They're inferior to us from a military standpoint. But what they can do is basically have us argue about race and make our kids dumber every generation. And then eventually they can just come in and mop up, because if you're too fat and you're too dumb and you're too busy arguing about nothing, then your target gets a little bigger. You get a little easier to take over. So we play into their hand because we sit here and argue about gender while they're just training their troops over there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing that's interesting about it is we don't even when the evidence is presented to us, it does not stop us. So
to some of us.
Some of us, sorry. You and I would stop.
We're the only
We're the only two people. There was and I'll get a little wrong here, but they were talking about Russian collusion for a million years, certainly the last 4 or 5 years.
Russian collusion is another thing. That's a difference.
They were talking about it a ton. And then some data came out, and it turned out that it was really Russia's involvement was very limited politically to, at the time, Hillary Clinton and or Donald Trump. It was mostly race-related stuff to get us fighting about race, not so much Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And then we found out that's what it was, and we went right back to fighting about race and just said Russian collusion. We never listened.
Yeah, there's a little more to that, but essentially you're saying a truth, I believe. What they have done and this is over many decades, is have us embattled over race, over gender, over age, many things. And meanwhile, they're inserting themselves into our society with the teachers that they placed in certain positions to overtake the universities and schools, and Hollywood was a target of theirs. All of this, and it's all in this little book that Ben Carson put out. I recommend it highly. It shows you much of that, and gives you the information that there was information put into our congressional record in 1963 that really showed you the whole menu. So we knew it. You know what I mean? It was placed in a very obvious place for us to take some lesson from, but we didn't.
No, well, we're so prone to this argument, and so what I call it is this. It's not a conspiracy theory. it is a sort of like-minded people in certain positions, which is to say, you take a look at college campuses, you take a look at the politics of the average professor on a college campus, or you take a look at the average politics of a high school teacher or junior high teacher, and their politics are a certain way. They believe a certain thing, and they have certain doctrines that they follow. And what I say all the time is, if they were just vegetarian, let's just say all college professors were just vegetarian.
They're not?
There's a few vegans in there. No, if they were, it wouldn't take too long for them to start talking about tofu in the middle of their history exam, because people can't keep it to themselves. It's
Well
like,
said.
I like cars, and when I start talking, eventually I'll start weaving some car stuff in, because that's what I like, you know?
Right.
And at a certain point, the kids learn that if you show up with a meatloaf sandwich to Mrs. Sontag's class, she's a vegetarian, and that may not help your final score very much if you're sitting there with a meatloaf sandwich. And by the way, she doesn't live and let live. She's a vegetarian. She does not tolerate you and your meatloaf sandwich. And so eventually, people would start to learn.
Yeah.
Well, you pick up the veggie sub as well. Otherwise, it could affect you negatively, and you need this. And the thing they figured out in the last 10 minutes is, why are we waiting until college? Because by then, sometimes the cement in your mind has dried, and they can't put their initials in it with a stick.
Boy, this is so beautiful the way you're saying this. It's really amazing. It's perfect.
And I started thinking during COVID.
You see how smart you are.
No, that's only you.
No, I'm serious about this.
I said, why do they need 2-year-olds to wear masks? You know what I mean? What good? First off, they're wearing it around their chin, their nose is hanging out. You can't have a 2-year-old effectively wear a mask, even if a mask worked for COVID, which it doesn't. But why the 2-year-olds? And then I came up with a phrase I call crate training. I said, you got to get those puppies when they're young. You got to get the pups young, and then you crate train them. You can't take a middle-aged dog and crate train it. It's too late. You got to get it young. And what's the crate training? What does it really mean? Well, the pup thinks it's safe in the crate. But what if the house is on fire? As long as it's in the crate, and the crate could be in the middle of the house, and the house could be on fire, but it will go to the crate and get in the crate because it thinks it's safe in the crate. And you train young pups to do that, and you got them for the rest of the time. And so they figured out, why don't we get the 2-year-olds? Why don't we get everyone coached up young, and then we'll have them for the rest of the time?
The KGB is as smart as you are.
That's right.
That's what we're learning here. No, that's the truth, though. Yeah.
And that's where the weird obsession with kids comes all the time. I mean, COVID never harmed kids. It didn't harm healthy kids at all, to the point where statistically is 0, but yet this weird obsession with grabbing the kids, and it works, and it's effective. So why wait till they get to college?
Well, we've seen a lot of crazy things, haven't we?
Yes. Now the tough
Did I say
part,
that right? I'm an actor, you see. We've seen a lot of crazy things, haven't we?
Hey, Johnny, that's good. Why don't you give me 3? Give me 3 takes.
We've seen a lot of crazy things,
good,
haven't we?
Thick German accent, good.
Yes.
Now, what would your dad sound like if he was saying that?
Well, he'd probably say, boys, not everybody is nuts, but there are a lot of nuts.
So the question is why is this attractive to such a large percentage of our society? That's what I keep trying to sort of wrap my mind around.
Well, propaganda does work, you know.
Yeah, it
so
does.
If you're watching the networks on television, and you're listening to certain people, you're going to get swayed if enough of that gets into your head. So the protections, first of all, we weren't alert to it, you know. But now we see the results of all of that when the college campus erupts in this anti-Semitism, let's say, or any of this stuff.
They love Palestine.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
Yeah, right.
It's insane.
It's really something. So anyway, we're working against something that's been inlaid for quite a long time because it's a very patient process. They have a 3-layered, attack on us, and each layer takes at least 20 years. So they were patient, and it turns out that if you listen to the major universities in our country, the people who represented them, the presidents of those universities and what they stood for, I mean, they really got to it. They took them over.
Yeah.
You can see what you're dealing with. You're dealing with people who really are anti-American.
How do you navigate Hollywood? Because Hollywood is sort of
They've done it to Hollywood.
Yes,
pretty well. Yeah.
It's the nest for a lot of this stuff, and they're smart. They're at college campuses, Hollywood. They get the message out.
Right. Well, Lenin thought you got to get the storytellers. You got to get movie industry. He was focused way back then at the movie industry before there was sound.
Yeah, so it's not easy for people that think like us to navigate Hollywood because so much of Hollywood doesn't think like us, and they're not a live and let live group. They like
not presently, no.
No, you tell me. So here's my thoughts, but you've experienced it as well. I don't think there's such a thing as negotiating with these people. I think it's basically Elon Musk has to buy Twitter, and that's the way it'll fix it. It's not explaining to big tech that they're doing the wrong thing by censoring this, that, and the other. It's not appealing to these people's sensibilities. It's more like we just need to kind of break off and do your own thing. Like, Reagan, I know the producers. I've worked with these guys before. I know Dennis Quaid. I know who you're working with. And it's like they just broke off and just said, we just have to go do our own thing somewhere else. Ben Shapiro's not going to hang out in Hollywood and navigate and end up on Netflix with specials. He's going to go move to Nashville and start the Daily Wire. It's kind of sad, but I think it's maybe the only answer.
It's very sad. One of the things that's sad, maybe the saddest to me, is that the children aren't being taught of the greatness of our country. They're not taught about the Revolutionary War.
Right.
If they talk about the Revolution, they say, well, no, dismiss all those people. There is no heroes among them because they all owned slaves or whatever it was.
Yes.
You can't find it on Google. You can't find anything representative of the greatness of our country on Google. It'll pass you to something else.
They're tearing down statues.
Oh,
and by the way,
exactly.
How is it possible to be happy and tear down statues simultaneously? I
don't know. Well, you're in the construction business, and it's a lot like that joy. It's just the reverse. Instead of building something, you're tearing it down. You see, but it's the same equipment.
It's really there's the greatest clip, and I hear there's certain clips I go to every couple of years because they're so spot on and indicative, but it's Nancy Pelosi.
Oh boy.
And someone is saying to Nancy Pelosi, this is about 4 or 5 years old now, but we've played it on this show more than once, but it's so telling. Somebody says to Nancy Pelosi, who's basically third in charge of this country, people are tearing down statues at night with no permits or anything. Don't you think this should be discussed? And she goes, all right, you have to really listen to her. She goes, I'm not really into heirlooms, like we're talking about grandma's brooch or something. And she ends it with people are going to do what they're going to do, which is, I would say, the opposite of leadership. People are going to do what they're going to do. And also, how about you have this carefree approach to me adding a second story to my house? Like, hey, I don't need a permit. I'm just I'm just doing what I do. You know what I mean? Chillax, Nancy. All right, this is the greatest answer. John, enjoy this soundbite from Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, boy.
The sound is never up. It's a weird thing here. It's unfixable, I've realized.
So I have that pride, but I don't care that much about statues.
Shouldn't that be done by respectfully, shouldn't that be done by a commission or the city council, not a mob in the middle of the night throwing it into the harbor?
People will do what they do. It's a...
Yeah.
This is clinically insane. This is insane that she's like, shouldn't be done by mob in the middle of the night, right? People are going to do what they're going to do. This is a person that's governing this country is saying that people are going to do what she doesn't care. Now, what she's really saying is the people that are tearing the statue down are on my side, so I can't say anything about them because those are all Pelosi voters. Like those are my people. But there was another great one. Somebody kept taking a pickaxe to Donald Trump's star on the Walk of Fame, and they got hold of the police, not the police chief, but the chief of the police union. And they're like, don't you think it's a bad idea to take a pickaxe to Trump's star in front of him? And he's going, hey, what are you going to do? And he starts laughing and he walks away. And it's like, we can't have two systems here. Either stuff's legal or it's illegal, and tearing down statues in the middle of the night. Also, you have to understand you're in some sort of position of power. You're supposed to feign some outrage, like, oh, people in the middle of the night tearing down statues. I don't stand for that. She just goes, people are going to do what they're going to do. And she shrugged. She literally shrugged when she said it.
Yeah.
Oh, she is so bad. But yes.
Yes. Well, I was going to, while you were speaking, I was looking up in this book the list of the menu of the KGB, right? And
Yuri Bezmenov.
Yeah. And one of these things is get control of the schools, use them as transmission belts for socialism and current communist propaganda, soften the curriculum, different things like that, right?
Yeah,
and then it comes to this. Continue discrediting American culture by degrading all forms of artistic expression. An American communist cell was told to eliminate all good sculpture from parks and buildings, substitute shapeless, awkward, and meaningless forms.
Wow.
You know,
so
I mean, they get right down to very
from 84.
specific detail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. So Nancy is obviously
it's effective.
Been overtaken by some of this stuff. You see.
I don't know if it's. I like to play the game stupid or liar. Like, I don't know if they're lying or they're stupid or if they believe. I don't know what they think I don't know what they think the end game is. You know, there's you want to defund the police. Like, what do you think the end game is?
Yeah,
you know, you want sanctuary cities. What do you think the end game is? You want all electric cars without upgrading the fleets have been upgraded, but not the system hasn't been upgraded.
Yeah.
The grid is not upgraded. What is the end game? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, you're a smart person, and it's very hard for you to understand that.
I don't.
You have to be a really.
I guess you got to be
an absent person to take a little of that on. But listen, the situation is serious. And we're dealing with a very full-blown, blossoming of all of this attack on America. Well, and some people have fallen into it because they've just been ingesting all of this propaganda, and it works. It's a scientific kind of thing. They're very clever. And then it gets into the. So I don't know the whole answer, but I do know the good stuff is still around. And, when I look back at my childhood, I say I was quite fortunate, really fortunate, of course. But those values were in place at that time, and I'd really like to see this country embrace those values once again. What makes America unique, why we call it the land of the free and the home of the brave,
Yeah. My concern is I always feel like the ocean can absorb a lot of sewage. It can just absorb it, and we have a society that was so robust and an economy that was so robust and just a spirit that was so robust that we could absorb a lot of this for a long time. But at a certain point, you get to some saturation level and the fish start dying in the sea. It can absorb a lot, but at a certain point, you're asking too much of the sea or the society. You know, we can absorb X amount of homeless and X amount of criminals and X amount of illegals and X amount of unemployable people. Like, we can absorb a lot, but it's starting to get to the saturation level. Yeah. And like LA, I've been here my whole life. You've been here a million years. We had a homeless situation. It was called Skid Row, but it wasn't called everywhere all the time. Meaning we could absorb X amount of homeless, but we can't absorb tens of thousands. And we're getting to that point where we're at our saturation level. That's kind of the way it feels to me.
Maybe that's what it had to get to for us to wake up.
Yeah, but what does wake up mean? Like, who makes the move?
To turn the wheel.
We don't, but in L.A.
I'm trying to
California,
keep up with your intelligence, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to say things every once in a while that makes sense.
We don't change here, which is
weird.
We've
got to, that's the point.
I agree, and I'm always like, I find it marginally insulting that there's some sort of thing where it's like, well, of course they think that way because they're white or they're racist or they're rich or they don't know what it's like to work or any of this stuff. I'm like, I would just want the best technique and the best policy for everyone.
And sane people do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for you can, I think you can navigate Hollywood if you're good. Like you have to have something. You have to have ability, and you have to bring something. Because if
we
you
have
don't,
to eventually
start.
We eventually have to start making movies that people want to see.
Yes.
And I think that economics is going to demand that, and it is demanding it too. But we've got some work to do, and maybe this is the turning point now. I hope it is.
And for you, you've been out here. So let's hop back for you for a second. You go back to New York. I mean, you go to New York as a young actor, budding actor, and you knock around, taking classes, working on jobs, doing what everyone does. Who do you come across back in those days? There had to be some great names.
Well, I've been very. I really love actors. I love artists. You know, and I'm in awe of really talented people. One of the people I bumped into when I was a young actor, just starting out, was Al Pacino. Mm-hmm. And when I met Al, I'll just tell you a little bit of Al. I had made Midnight Cowboy, and I was going with a girl by the name of Jennifer Salt, who was the daughter of the author, the screenwriter of Midnight Cowboy. And she had a friend, Jill Clayburgh, who became Jill Clayburgh, a great actress.
Who became Jill Claiborne?
Clayburgh.
Well, there's a Jill Claiborne.
No.
Different
Jill.
Jill.
Different gal. And she made some big movies, too.
Jill Clayburgh we need versus Jill Claiborne.
Yeah, don't look that way.
I'm sorry.
She's looking at his engineer.
Keep going. The computer will tell us.
And they're trying to find it. Anyway, Jill was going with Al Pacino at that time. Mm-hmm. And Jennifer was saying to me, I just made Midnight Cowboy, and I was feeling all of a sudden I made it.
You were nominated.
Something's happened to me. You know what I mean? It was becoming something in the business. And she said, "You've got to meet my friend Ali Pally," she said, called Al Pacino Ali Pally. And we got to go down and see him in Indian Wants the Bronx. This play is doing off Broadway. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go because I didn't want to go celebrate another actor at that time, especially if he's really good.
Yeah, I get it.
But I go there with Jennifer and Jill, and I watch, and the place goes dark, and I hear them singing, "Sugar, sugar, whoa, whoa, honey, honey."
Archie's.
You know, that's a great song. And it's these three so-called thugs. And then the lights come up, and one of them is Al Pacino. And I'm about 5 or 10 minutes into this play off Broadway, and I look to Jen, and I say to her quietly, "I can't do that." Mm-hmm. Saying, this guy's doing something I can't do, and I think I'm pretty talented too.
Right.
But from that point on, and I've never felt any less than that. I've always felt in awe of the spirit of this artist, and just a great warmth for him. I love this man. He's a great man. But anyway, so and then we became friends back then, and I met several wonderful people that grew up with me, and we've been working like Dustin Hoffman. I met doing a play off Broadway, and we've been friends ever since. And these guys are enormous guys to me.
And the ilk of Runaway Train and movies people need to see. They need to see Papillon. They may have. Some people miss that one too. The Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin, Steve.
Jill Clayburgh is also Jill Clayborn.
Oh, is that right?
See?
Oh, well, you were smart. You see, you're expressing your intelligence all over the place on this interview.
Well, you know how I knew it was Jill Clayborn?
No.
You said Jill Clayburgh, who changed her name to Jill Clayburgh. And I thought,
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did. You started to say it.
I want to play this back, the whole thing.
Starting
from the
top.
I might have missed a lot of things here.
And I thought people would change their name from Jewish-sounding names to Anglo-sounding names or non-Jewish sounding names. So I thought you were saying she changed her name from Jill Clayburgh to Jill Clayborn, who I was familiar with, who was a very popular actress.
No, I didn't. I don't know if that's the truth even now. Because Jill Clayburgh is...
is Jill Clayborn and Jill Clayburgh the same person?
Just Jill Clayburgh.
There is no Jill Clayborn.
There is no Jill Clayborn.
There we go.
Oh, my God. Not so smart anymore.
I take it back.
There's a Liz Claiborne. That's a fashion designer. Don't think that's what you're thinking of. But maybe it is.
There is no actress named Jill Clayborn.
Certainly not a famous one by any means.
So you put in the actress name who was in movies all through the 70s.
Yep.
And maybe I always thought Jill Clayburgh was Jill Clayborn. I just mispronounced it the whole time. Wow, this is revelatory.
Well, you couldn't read for such a long time.
Read.
I mean, give us a, I mean.
Jill, what movies? This is, I think, who I'm thinking of. She was in what? She was in everything. She was in, what movies was she in?
From the beginning, Search for Tomorrow, The Wedding Party, Portnoy's Complaint, The Thief Who Came to Dinner, The Terminal Man, Gable and Lombard, Silver Streak, Semi-Tough.
Oh, Silver Streak. That is Jill Clayborn, but Jill Clayburgh. And wow, this is numbing my mind because I always thought her name was Jill Clayborn. Silver Streak she played Gene Wilder's girlfriend or love interest in that movie, and never went by anything other than Jill Clayburgh. Well, then you're so right, and I owe you an apology.
You can just erase that all from the tape before it goes out. You know what I mean? I want to stay with the myth of your intelligence.
Well, as long as there's people like you out there peddling that myth, I think I'm in wonderful shape. So for you, 85 and no signs of slowing down. Is there a secret? Is there a regiment? Is it all genes?
I try to eat properly. I take vitamin pills. I have a little exercise regimen that I do. But I think the reason why I'm an actor, so you can't trust what I look like is what I am. Do you understand? I try to look good, you know, as most actors do in Hollywood. Now the New York guys don't give a shit.
Right, interesting.
The Hollywood guys, they want to look good, you know what I mean? So I got a little of that. I want to look good. And anyway, I think I'm doing pretty well for my age, and I'm still. But the thing that really drives me is I still have a sense of purpose. I really love what I do, and I try to do something with what I get. And I care a lot about a lot of things. So I think that's what keeps me around and keeps me healthy.
A passion.
Yeah.
The movie It's called Reagan, and it'll be in theaters. It is in theaters when you hear this. We're taping this a little bit early. I love the producers. Quaid's a good guy, and just takes over the role. And John, for you, I don't know if there's anything else coming up that you want to
Let me say this about that movie, okay?
Say this about it.
This movie was not supposed to come out now. It was supposed to come out a year and a half before. Mm-hmm. We ran into COVID and we ran into the actors' strike, and we had some difficulties. They had some difficulties in sorting out the script before they did the CGI work on it and stuff. So it took a long time, and it just pushed us to this date. Mm-hmm. And now it seems that it's very relevant. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even a couple of weeks after the assassination attempt on our president, former president.
Rosie O'Donnell thinks it was a shard of glass, but not a bullet. But
yeah, well, okay, Rosie. Anyway, it comes out now, and it's really a terrific movie. I have to say, you haven't seen it, have you?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yes, well, you'll be impressed with it. It's really, really well done, and the central performances, all the performances throughout the piece are great, and the central performances are quite wonderful. And Dennis does embody the president, and Penelope Ann Miller is sensational in it, and people are gonna like this movie. They'll come back to. I'm going to go see it again too. Eventually, I'll see it probably 10 times this year. Not because they make me, but because I want to see it. It's really a nice ride, beautifully sculpted and very satisfying and very moving. And it's a great love story between Ronald Reagan and Nancy. A wonderful love story. So anyway, go and enjoy it. It's a terrific movie.
And timing couldn't be better. Reagan, and it's in theaters as you hear this. Jon Voight, I've always want to talk to you, and I'm always such a fan of yours, and I just hope you can come by on a semi-regular
You've hid that the whole time.
I wait. I save the praise until the end. Everyone's a fan of Jon Voight. I mean, I'm a big fan, and I like you on and off screen, and so, if you want to come here and
me too with you. I certainly will come back when you invite me.
Bask in the glow of my wit
and
intelligence.
Absolutely.
You come back anytime you like.
You're so smart.
So until next time, Adam Crawford, Jon Voight saying mahalo.